Hello everyone, this is Sergey from Ushanka Show, and today I would like to talk with you guys about a sad date, the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I should make that video a couple of days ago because the invasion started on February 24th, 2022, but unfortunately I was busy, but at least it's better late than never, right? So let's talk about what happened and where we're at right now. As you're well aware, right before the war, I recorded the video where I explained to you guys that war will never happen and Russia will never attack Ukraine like full-blown military action. Just was preposterous. And when the war actually began, I was in shock. And when my co-workers were asking me, because they knew I'm from Ukraine, trying to understand what was going on, I told them the idea of Russia attacking Ukraine to protect Russian-speaking people is as preposterous as the idea of United States attacking Canada to protect English-speaking people. And at that time, everyone understood this concept, but right now it's February 2025, and the idea of United States attacking Canada to make it a 51st state doesn't sound that preposterous anymore, right? Because the President of the United States repeatedly announced that he would like to see Canada as a part of the United States, just like Vladimir Putin was announcing for a long time that he would like former Soviet republics to become a part again of something like Soviet Union. So world changed a lot in the last 3 years. And as I mentioned earlier, I was absolutely wrong when I was telling you guys that it's not possible, that the whole idea that Russia will attack Ukraine is not in the books, so that was wrong on that part. But also I tried to apply logic, because no one in their right mind will start the war in the winter time, especially in the area Russia, Ukraine. I don't know if you know the difference, I live in Michigan, right? And if you look really close on the map of Michigan, and I think it's a lot of states like that, not all of them. If you look really close on the road map, it looks like the crisscross, like the whole state is crisscrossed with roads. So every mile is pretty much roads crossing each other. The roads going north, south, roads going east, west. So if the troops are moving through Michigan, it's extremely hard to stop them because they can constantly change the pattern and stay on the hard roads, right? A hard top, like asphalt. In Ukraine and Russia, it's a completely different situation. You have a point A, point B. Usually it's only one road connecting them. There's maybe some secondary roads go through another village. We don't have that kind of pattern of the roads like here in Michigan, for example. So if you start the war in the winter, you are stuck to highways. You can't get off the road because you'll get stuck in the mud. In the summer, when everything is dry, you can get off the road and race across the fields and forests, just like Germans did in June of 1941. In the winter, it's impossible. So the attacking force is extremely vulnerable to any ambushes, attacks from the air, because all you can do is just go in a column. And this is what happened. So I was wrong about the general idea that Russia going to attack Soviet Union, oh my gosh, Ukraine, but I was totally correct, because besides that, Kremlin didn't expect Ukrainians to put up any decent resistance, and secondary, because of that, they thought it would be totally cool that they just roll on the roads straight to the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, take over, and the conversation that they were planning to take over Kiev in less than 3 days and take over the entire country, at least the eastern part and southern part, under 3 weeks, to have that area under total control. As we know, it didn't happen, but as I said, I was totally wrong. Explaining my reasoning is just because I grew up in the Soviet Union. Most of my friends were Russians. We never had any problems with each other, but of course, a lot changed since then, since Putin took power in 2000. For all these years, for 20-some years, there was a really heavy propaganda, kind of building hate towards Ukrainians. On TV, in the movies, it was just a big cultural shift. So Russians it became kind of more normalized for them to hate Ukrainians and being okay with killing them. But I said I was away from the country, so I had no idea. And of course, when I went to visit my parents in Ukraine, I spoke Russian everywhere in Kiev in the village, and never anyone give me a hard time, yell at me, or trying to beat me up for speaking Russian language. So the whole concept of declaring that Ukrainian government is going after Russian-speaking people was bogus. So yeah, I was wrong. And of course, looking back, my mother, she used to live in the northern Ukraine, like 15 kilometers, 20 kilometers from the border. So she was basically, her village was overran by Russian troops on the first day. But the way the village located is just they roll through it. And then 2 months later, or months later, they're all back. So they even hardly saw any Russian soldiers. She ended up being under Russian occupation for a while. And then, of course, my brother got drafted about a year ago. So he now serves with Ukrainian border troops. He's fighting, doing his part. Of course, back in the day when he was in draft age, and they dropped a lot of amount of people drafting because they didn't need a huge army anymore in Ukraine after it became independent, and the whole concept of Soviet Union fighting against the West went away. So he was deemed not, he didn't have to serve, put it that way, for medical conditions. But now standards changed, so he got drafted. So there's a lot of stress in our family. I was trying to stay in touch, make sure I send him everything he needs, so he at least has good boots, good gear, and all that stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy what's going on. And of course now we entered a new crazy stage after Donald Trump became a president of the United States for the second time. I don't know when it was last time that the United States voted together with North Korea, but this has just happened. North Korea, Russia, United States, and several other countries voted against the United States resolution condemning Russian aggression. So the world is almost like pretty much upside down. It's really, I have no words to explain my disappointment. I always was kind of suspicious that with the history of Donald Trump, that he became a Soviet asset back in 1987. This is an interesting topic if you guys want to research, if you didn't yet. He traveled to Soviet Union, to Moscow, with his first wife Ivana, who originally from Czechoslovakia, and the girl that spoke fluent Russian. As of course, there's rumors that quite possible she was a Czechoslovakian Secret Service agent. I don't know. But he was invited by Russian Soviet ambassador in United States, Dobrynin, I think was his last name. So they picked the Trump out of all the other people to talk about building a Trump Tower in Moscow. So he went in July of 1987, stayed in Soviet Union for 2 weeks. I don't know who paid all those expenses, but according to his book, he couldn't come up with any good deal to build a Trump Tower, because what he explained, they told him that he can't own the land. We didn't have a private ownership of land in the Soviet Union. So according to Trump in his book, that he refused, if I don't own the land, I'm not going to build a tower, which is kind of weird because it's totally normal in real estate in America, I don't know, maybe around the world, that land belongs to someone else. You build building on that land and you just rent it. I believe one of the Trump Towers in New York City, he pays monthly rent to some German family that owns the land, the plot. He owns the building, so it's totally normal. So it's kind of a excuse. What's more interesting happened when Trump returned to United States. He right away signed up as a member of the Republican Party. He became extremely interested in political activity. Then he published he paid like $90,000 for the back page of New York Times, and he published this big message statement saying that NATO is not good, NATO is taking advantage of America, we shouldn't waste our money, blah, blah, blah. So this whole message started back in 1987. So from having zero interest in politics, Trump suddenly became super interested, and he ran for president a lot of times apparently. That was interesting. I started researching this topic. If you're familiar with post-Soviet Union collapse Russia, they had this kind of like a, I would say, clown. I mean, he did his bidding for Putin, Vladimir Zhirinovsky. Then I made several videos about him. If I'll remember, I'll put the link below in the comment section. He ran for president. I think he holds like world record, at least for Russia, for attempts to run for president. Usually, you run once, it didn't work for you, you're done. He ran every single time. So every time there was election in Russia since 2000, he ran, and just to kind of like the whole idea that he would distract enough votes on his side to help Putin to remain at power. So Trump ran as many times, I think it's all really close to Zhirinovsky, so they two hold records for attempts to run for presidency of the United States. So once again, and Trump changed parties a lot. He, after being Republican and not having much traction there at that time, he switched to Democratic Party for a while. Like there's a picture of him during his third wedding, so that's when he married Melania. He invited the Clintons to his wedding, so there's a picture of them hanging out together. So he had no problems with Democrats at that time, and he was a member of Democratic Party. Then he switched to some other parties, ended up going full circle and coming back to Republican Party. And at that time, his message really, kind of get traction now. So, and we have him as a president of the United States for the second time. And of course, there were rumors before, that he was a Soviet Russian asset, but now what Trump does right now, I don't know if anybody has any doubt, he completely switched to the Russian side, blamed Ukraine for starting the war, calling Zelensky as a dictator, although not saying a single word about Putin being a dictator and staying in power since 2000, for 25 years. So it's okay for Putin being in power for 25 years. He's not a dictator. But Zelensky, who got elected in 2019, apparently he is a dictator. So it's really stressful situation right now. And I don't know, hope for some positive outcome. Maybe it will help what Trump does right now with his policies, with his voting together with Russia. Maybe Europe will wake up, because for too long Europe was kind of riding on the back seat or a shotgun seat, letting America deal with all the problems in the world, and they were just kind of like came along for the ride and maybe send little troops here and there to show their support, but never really been involved, invested in keeping a strong NATO. So maybe there's a chance that Europe will realize that they are next. That Putin won't stop in Ukraine, and his plans is to have Ukraine completely absorbed. Then once Ukraine, Belarus will become automatically part of Russia, then Moldova will be next, and then we're looking at the Baltic states, maybe Kazakhstan. Because this is what the Russian Empire did over years and years, hundreds of years. They'll get their butts kicked, like fall apart, and then like Mercury, they're trying to put it all back together again to reassemble empire. We saw it happening, after World War One, when all the republic, at that time wasn't republics, the territories ran away: Finland, Baltic states, Ukraine, Middle Asia, that different Stands Republic, everyone became independent, and then Lenin, and then Stalin after him steadily started reoccupying all those territories. They even tried to reoccupy Finland. So this is what Putin is doing again. It's like a Soviet Union 2.0. Logic behind it, I don't know honestly, but it's like empires need to grow, otherwise they will collapse. And Russia is the last old-fashioned land empire that remained. So, with loss of population, I thought the world is switching from oil to, like electricity, kind of driven economies, and if world will stop buying oil and gas from Russia, Russia will be in really deep trouble. So I kind of see logic what Putin is doing. He's trying to, protect his empire, and the only way to protect empires, attack your neighbors and use their resources and population to become stronger. So it's really scary. I don't know how much anybody can do right now besides donating to Ukrainian military, the Ukrainian forces. They still stay strong, and it makes me wonder, maybe Putin really growing desperate because there's here they already lost. Of course, there's no official data, but they're talking between 250,000 to 400,000 troops were killed or wounded in Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine lost a lot of people too, but it comes to the point that Russia is just gonna run out of manpower, especially. Oh, I forgot the name. This guy on YouTube, he does a lot of videos on the topic of like demographics and how to drive an economies, and he was showing that there's a big collapse in population of Russia is coming, so he just won't have troops anymore. There will be not enough young men to sustain this war. So Putin's in a hurry, and that's why he's pushing Trump to get it all wrapped up, make some kind of deal, which is like, it's almost like, okay, let's blame Ukraine for this war. Let's give Russia a bunch of territories. Let's disarm Ukraine so it will be ready for, easy pickings in a couple of years when Russia will try to recover. I mean, we saw that scenario before with Chechnya. If you remember, Chechnya declared its independence. Russia didn't like it. First Yeltsin announced, take as much independence as you want. And Chechnya like, okay. So they declared independence. And Yeltsin got scared because, he realized that's all like, like a domino house. We pull one domino, the whole thing will crumble. And his generals promising them that they will take Chechnya under control little under 1 week and 3 days. That's same scenario as Ukraine. So Yeltsin agreed. The first Chechen war began. Russia lost. They signed, as they called later, shameful peace agreement. So if Russia doesn't like some peace agreement they had to sign because they lost, they'll call it shameful. And it's just a question of time when they're going to break that agreement and start another war, which would happen with Chechnya. And they end up reoccupying the territories and making Chechnya a part of Russia again. So my thinking about Russian, especially Russian government, changed a lot in these 3 years because, it was like, and I grew up in the Soviet Union, I grew up on that propaganda that Soviet Union is this big, maybe scary looking, but it's a nice bear, it's a friendly bear. He doesn't like to be bothered. He doesn't want anybody to mess around his woods and neighborhood. As long as you leave bear alone, the bear won't be bothering you. But now I realize it's a different type of bear. I'm not sure if there's a word in English, but in Russian they call it medved shatun. So it's a bear wanderer. So bears in the winter comes, they dig the whole berloga and they hibernate over the winter. But sometimes, for whatever reason, those bears wake up in the middle of the winter, and they get out their lair and they start wandering around, hungry, desperate to eat something. And this is like the most dangerous bear. And that's medved shatun, that he's like a wobbly bear. And this is what Russian Empire was always, this medved shatun, wobbly bear. It's always hungry. It's always wants, for some reason, it's an empire reason to expand and take over territories, take over neighbors. Because the ultimate dream of any Russian ruler was to expand the Russian borders all the way to the Mediterranean Strait. So where the Turkey is, right, the Bosphorus, they always wanted that territory. One is for religious reason, because it used to be Christian capital, like a second Rome, right? And Moscow calls itself third Rome. So they wanted to retake the second Rome, rename it back to Constantinople. That's where the Christianity started, and have control of the straits, because there's no use of Black Sea fleet when NATO members controlling, or Turkey controlling the straits. And it's over and over again. Russia runs into the problem. Like when they started the war, they brought some military ships into the Mediterranean, and Turkey didn't let them go through. And they end up, coming all the way around the world from the Pacific Fleet, got to the Mediterranean, were staying out there for 2 months, I think, and then they went to Leningrad because Turkey is a NATO member, just like, nope, you can't go through. It's, we have war going on, although Russia claims there is no war, it's a special military operation. Turkey refused, said, no, it's war, you can't go in or out. There is some kind of agreement about those straits that in case of war, no military ships is allowed to go through. So for Russia, it's extremely critical, was always important, and even a part of the Soviet Union strategy in case of the big war breaking up with the West. They had a large units of descent, so that's the airborne troops stationed in the southern Ukraine and Moldova, and that's what they're tasked to go and drop off in Istanbul and take control of the straits. So that's ultimate goal for Russia, of course, to get as far as there. I mean, ultimately they wanted to go all the way to Indian Ocean. There's another. So, the only way this war will stop forever and be no chance it will start again is when Russia, as the last land empire, will go the way the Austro-Hungarian Empire went, is to split in a separate states. Because a lot of republics, which is part of Russia, they have nothing to do with Russia. There's no Russian people. It's a different religion. The Muslims, Tatarstan, Chechen republics, Dagestan. There's a lot of these occupied territories in Caucasian region, Yakutia, Chukotka. This is just, they have nothing to do with like Russia and Russian people. But of course, if that will happen, there's another headache what to do with all the nuclear weapons which spread all over the country. We had that situation with Ukraine when after the collapse of the Soviet Union, suddenly Ukraine was the world's third nuclear power. So it was Russia, United States, and then was Ukraine. And, I know how much you're familiar with Budapest Memorandum when the United States basically forced Ukraine to give up nuclear weapons and give it back to Russia, to give up all the, like a nuclear bombers fleet, all that. In exchange, they offer them mutual respect and mutual assurances that Ukraine will remain its borders that got set up in 1991. So, and Ukraine, as you know, got screwed big time because it's not even an agreement. It's actually a memorandum, which is like, in diplomatic world, it's just a bunch of empty words. It's just like a word salad. You read that memorandum and it's just mutual assurances, mutual respect, mutual assurance. There's nothing says like in case if any country attacked Ukraine, we're gonna bring troops, we're gonna do this or that. So United States forced Ukraine and didn't offer any like real guarantees, and that's another problem. There's not a word guarantee; it's a word assurance. If you buy a car, you want 5-year guarantee that it won't break down, not assurances of the salesperson. But this is what pretty much happened. Bill Clinton, who was the salesperson at that time in the United States, basically, we'll give you assurances, we'll not give you any guarantees. And another problem was that memorandum, it was translated in Russian and Ukrainian, and they put in the title word guarantee. In an English title, there is no word. And I don't know how that works in international whole law, which is like a prime paperwork and which is secondary paperwork. But in Russian and Ukrainian, there is a word guarantee. In English language, there's none. So Ukrainian people are like, look, Americans guarantee that they're going to protect us in case of somebody going to invade us. But in English version, there's no guarantees. So all the statements when I later realized like we don't need to help Ukraine, technically yes, but we know logic. Ukraine couldn't afford to have that giant nuclear arsenal. There was no money, so of course there was a big concern that the weapons will start going somewhere we don't want to go, like Iran, whatever other countries that are not friendly to the United States. So I understand the logic, but the fact that you basically stripped Ukraine of everything and didn't give nothing in return except empty promises is not really cool as well. So it's a really stressful times. I mean, it was bad, and with this United States changing its policy 180% and now it's supporting Russia. That's really kind of scary. And you need to also understand there's another date, like Putin is big about numbers, right? About dates. Like they attacked Georgia in not American Georgia, right? On August 8, 2008. So it's 888. Original plan looks like to attack Ukraine was 2/22, 2022. So 2/22/22. But apparently, at the same time, there was Olympics going on in China, and Putin went there, and the closing was, I think, maybe like 23rd. So there's there's nothing confirmed, but there's a rumor that Chinese guys said like, no, you don't spoil I want a grand finale of my Chinese Olympics. I don't want any war starting on the wrong date. So Putin had to postpone for 2 days, starting an awkward date. Maybe he's blaming now that that he wasn't successful. But the next date is May 9, 2025. In Soviet Union and in Russia, it celebrates as the Victory Day. So this is 2025. So this is 80 years since the victory of the Soviet Union over Nazi Germany. So this is how that day called. It's not during the victory of World War II. No. Soviet Union didn't really participate in World War II. That's what Soviet historians made sure they... Soviet Union had nothing to do with World War II till June 22nd, 1941, when Nazi Germany attacked Soviet Union. And that was the beginning of a different war. It was just a kind of stage of the World War II, but it was a great patriotic war. And it lasted the May 9, 1945. This is the Great Patriotic War ended. It's when the Soviet Union won, had a victory over Nazi Germany. This is actual language, not like Allied forces. This is like, no, it's the Soviet Union won against Germany. So for Putin, it will be just amazing if he can bring along victory over Ukraine to the same date, so they can have a parade, and invite Trump to come to Moscow for this big parade and celebrate 80 years since they won over Nazi Germany, and also celebrate victory over Ukraine on the same date. So I think this is his next kind of idea that he's pushing hard, because United States really, it's not good to be together with North Korea, voting the same as North Korea and some other odd countries and Russia to condemn to refuse to condemn Russian aggression. But I think Putin is growing desperate, and he's pushing hard for his puppet in White House to help him to wrap it up and take care of this conflict, which is actually war. And all this conversation about trading rare earth mineral rights, it's honestly, it's pretty insane, but it is what it is. But I think this is what the kind of next Putin's project. He's trying to get like some kind of agreement stopping war, and so he started the war and he gets what he wants. Takes 4 regions of Ukraine, make Ukraine, rip all the claws and teeth, make it basically powerless to resist Russian next aggression, because it will come, just a question of time, and celebrate the victory day on May 9, 2025. Like, look, we beat the Nazi Germany by ourselves. That's another topic. They always claim they did it on their own. No one else was fighting with them. And then also added to their list that they also prevailed over Ukraine. So yeah, I was wrong back 3 years ago that Russia would attack, but I was correct when I said that was the wrong time to do it, and they're going to have a hard time. So anyway, all we can do is hope and help Ukraine to win, or at least, winning is means to at least push Russia out of the Ukrainian territories and maintain its sovereignty, and let Ukrainian people decide what they want to do, who they're going to elect next. And, so there's always hope. So anyways, thank you for watching Ushanka Show. Thank you for all your support, your likes, and we'll talk to you soon. До побачення, goodbye, glory to Ukraine.